Real quick, before we get into this episode of Baschamania, if you don't follow the show on Instagram, you won't know that I just teamed up with Traeger Grills, the absolute best wood pellet grill out there, to give away a complete Traeger grill setup. We're giving away a Traeger Pro Series grill, bags of Traeger wood pellets, Traeger rubs, Baschamania shirt, a Baschamania hat, a grill cover, everything you need to grill all summer long. So go to @Baschamania on Instagram and learn how to enter. The contest is going to be open from March 11th to March 25th. With that said, let's roll its intro and get today's show started.
It's Baschamania! Let me tell you something, brother. He gave us everything he had in him tonight. What you gonna do when Baschamania runs wild on you? Oh, it's gonna be a good one. And business just picked up here on the podcast. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to episode 41, Baschamania. It's a little bit different today because there's breaking news, and as I read that there's going to be no fans at NCAAs. I was texting with some of the guys, and Seth Gross was one of those guys, so I wanted his reaction. So instead of just calling each other, I thought, why not just have the conversation on the podcast? Seth, how are you?
I'm doing great. As always, thanks for having me on, and appreciate it. And yeah, we got some crazy stuff to talk about, I guess.
For sure. So let's start with this past weekend. Before we get into NCAAs, we'll talk about Big 10's real quick. You had some great matches. I know some matches obviously didn't go your way. You wrestled a close match that you won with Joey Silva. You had the 1-point loss to Rivera, beat Alvarez, I think 6-1, and then you beat DeSanto. What's your overall thoughts and takeaways from Big 10's?
First thoughts is, wow, Big 10's is a grinder. It's awesome. Every match is you're wrestling a top guy, and Joey Silva first match is he's no slouch, and I think he's gonna be a kid that's gonna be on people's radar in the future, and then it doesn't get any easier. Keep moving forward. I got Sebastian Rivera, Austin DeSanto, Alvarez. It's awesome. It's fun to go do that, and obviously, I think for me personally to take that step, get ready for NCAAs and all that, it's just putting a full 7 minutes together, because when I'm out there wrestling, letting it fly, I'm scoring points, I'm doing well, but for whatever reason, if it's a mental thing that I got to figure out before NCAAs, it's just putting a full 7 minutes together where I'm going for it. I'm trying to score points. I've been shutting down for full periods where I'm not doing as much as I should, and yeah, that's not me. That's not how I like to wrestle, and I need to get back to what I used to be doing. Scoring from start to finish and trying to score through that whistle. So that's kind of the big takeaways. Like I said, fun tournament. Crazy bracket I was in, and then getting to watch all the other weight classes was a blast too. So yeah, it was a great experience, and yeah, just looking forward to the next couple of weeks.
In the two matches, I guess we'll talk about for a minute. Like you said, Joey Silva, and I know Christian Piles has been talking about Joey Silva and touting him, nonstop. With Rivera, what changes do you think you have to make and adjustments you have to make for the NCAAs here? I mean, if you wrestle him now with the way it looks like the bracket just came out, you obviously wrestle him in the NCAA finals, which, everything's on the line. What adjustments do you think you have to make to win that match?
Yeah, like you said, first we both got to make the finals.
Right, totally.
That's no easy thing to do in itself. So one match at a time. But specifically, if that matchup does come about, like I said, I think it's wrestling full 7 minutes. I gave up. Another big thing was giving up right at the last 10 seconds of the second period. I gave up a takedown and couldn't get out, and that's the point that decided the match. Right, we both had 2 takedowns. He just had one more escape than I did. So, I got out there, and felt great, went after him, got to my offense, scored 2 takedowns, and then I don't know if if it was, like I said, I just got to figure out how I'm going to keep scoring points and keep wrestling for 7 minutes. I've been a little too complacent with winning close matches all year, and that's not going to work, when it comes down to it. So it's wrestling that full 7 minutes and continuing to score points, not getting 2 takedowns and then trying to sit on that lead, because as you can see, against good guys, that's never going to work. So yeah, putting 7 minutes together and finishing periods on top, or at very, very least finishing on my feet, because that's the worst thing you can do is get taken down at the end. That's the same reason Silva was in the match. I got reversed at the end of one period and couldn't get away, and little things like that. So it's I don't think I need to go back and fix a bunch of technical things and all this. I think it's getting my head right and wrestling and finishing periods on top and scoring more.
And I'll definitely clarify, because I'm not polished media, so I get myself in trouble because I don't clarify. And when I say that, like, what adjustments do you have to make for Rivera, I say that in the context of that was your only loss at the tournament. And obviously, like, this weight class is so open, and, everybody has so much talent. Like, if Rivera's back in the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. If RBY, who's right there, makes the finals, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, there is so much, and this is a tournament where, I guess I could ask you and go through the lineup of, okay, what about if RBY, and what about this, and it's like, that was just kind of my knee-jerk reaction, because that was the one match that you lost by a point. And then, as far as Alvarez, which I guess this is a nice segue into the NCAA conversation, you and I were texting after, because you and Reader were both like, man, this crowd is awesome. And they're booing you the entire time. Like, that crowd could not be more against you. They did not stop booing. They thought if they yelled stalling a little bit louder, the ref had to hit you. And Reese Humphrey tweeted out, I think it makes perfect sense. Like, guys, it's not a wrestler's job is to win. I can't remember exactly what he said, but like, stop, this, oh my gosh, he's stalling. Like, that's not it. But, what went through your head in that mind, like, with that crowd? Because for me, my reaction is like, yo, screw you all, like, set this. And I'm like excited for the guy that I'm rooting for. But, you and John both like, man, you guys, and I get it. Like, I love the atmosphere. Cheering or booing, I love that people are that much more invested in it. But what goes through your mind when you're wrestling that? Does that come into play?
I mean, I love it. I mean, I got, it was a hostile crowd when I was wrestling Sebastian. It was a hostile crowd when I wrestled Alvarez, two New Jersey boys right there. So, I was going to get that. And it just shows how passionate these people are for wrestling. So you can't. Obviously, people don't love getting booed and stuff, but, people are cheering, people are getting into it. It means, it's a good match of wrestling. They're not going to be cheering or booing or doing anything if it's a boring match. So that means, I'm doing something right. It's an exciting match. It's a match that is getting people excited and cheering or booing or whatever it is, and they're involved with the sport. And I think that's what we need. And right. Like I said, I feed off that. So
you don't take it personal. You're not like mad, or you don't take it personal then when you're in the match and you hear that.
No, not at all. I think honestly, I was more offended when people were booing after Luke Plecter won the finals. I think that kind of offended me a little bit, because Luke seems like I don't know him too well, but seems like an awesome kid doing things right, and this dude just won a Big Ten title, and I'm sure that's a huge moment for him. And he's out there doing his interview, and at that point, I think that was a little much. But as far as, my matches and stuff, I think that was all in the fun of the match and how intense the match got and stuff. And, yeah, it was a blast. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, dude, it's no secret for anybody who listens to this show that I'm a Penn State homer. If I had to pick a team, I default to Penn State, obviously. And I still didn't like it. Like, you see it a lot where guys are booing somebody, and it's funny because they were booing him initially during the interview, but after there was a pretty loud cheer when Shane ended the interview. They were applauding him. I'm like, how was he supposed to take that when you just booed him? I remember the same thing, feeling like that after Jason Nolf's match last year at NCAA's, when the crowd's booing Nolf over a call they didn't agree with the refs. Why are you taking that with Jason?
Yeah, and then the other big one sticks out is at Zane's match when he won that match. This dude just made the world team, and everybody's booing him, and you could see that he was getting emotional because he did what he had to do, and he wrestled the best match he could, and he got his hand raised, and he's not the referee, so I feel bad in those situations. And And then I don't think that's too fair on the athletes. But outside of that, like I said, when it's in a match, in the middle, they're trying to get a stall call for their guy, whatever, I think that's awesome.
And
Say what you want, boo.
I think
Get the crowd involved.
I think there needs if you had a bracket for a tournament of crowds that want stall calls, I think the finals would be Rutgers and Iowa would be leading the charge.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Speaking of crowds and audiences, it's obviously the perfect segue. The NCAA just announced that there's no fans at NCAAs. There's only going to be essential staff and the athletes. What is your initial reaction to that?
Oh, initial reaction. That's tough. There's so much things flooding through my head as soon as I heard that. It was kind of funny because probably about 2 weeks ago, my aunt and me were chatting a little bit, and she said, I guarantee it doesn't happen. Not that NCAA doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen as planned, and something like this would happen. And sure enough, here we are. But my initial thoughts are, this is a huge bummer. That's the thing that people train for, is to get the opportunity to wrestle in that atmosphere. That is the pinnacle in wrestling. Bigger than any tournament in the world is, NCAAs, and getting to wrestle under those lights. And, would have been my last opportunity to do that. It would, a lot of people, could be seniors this year, and they may not ever get that opportunity to wrestle in that atmosphere now. So I think that's a big bummer. The other big bummer is, at the end of the day, I get to go out there and compete, but I got a whole team behind me. I got a whole team that, helped me build up to this opportunity, and now some of those people might not get to show up and support me. And so that's kind of the two initial reactions and kind of bummers. This is what these athletes train for, is that crowd, that atmosphere, to put it all on the line in front of people. And that sucks that's not going to happen. And then, the people that have been training with me, the people that have been pushing me through it all, supporting me, that they might not get the opportunity to come watch now. It's rough, and I get, at the end of the day, if it saves one life, it's probably worth it. If
Sure.
one person that, is one less casualty because they decide to make that decision, it makes it worth it. But it still sucks.
And my initial reaction, for the first 10 seconds, is, man, this sucks for me. Scrap Life's launching a shoe that weekend. I have media credentials. It's going to be great to talk to everybody. And, it's kind of that one tournament every year where you get to see everybody. And I think I'm the kind of guy with sporting events, I'd rather watch them from home. I want to make popcorn. I want to fire up the Traeger, put some food on, call my friends during the matches. I love watching sports at home, but there's nothing like the experience of NCAAs and seeing everybody and being part of the crowd. And it took all but 10 seconds for my perspective to shift from this sucks for me to it's like, man, okay, here you are, a returning NCAA champion with your senior year. Here Chenzo's a returning champion his senior year. You have a guy like Gable who he's wrestling in his home crowd for all intents and purposes. He's,
my home crowd too.
Right, totally. And so it's like, man, these seniors, and I'm sure some of it hasn't even, really sank in yet as this just happened, but from a reaction of your senior year, knowing your last match before a crowd will be at Big 10's instead of NCAA is what does that mean to you?
I think the toughest part is that we didn't really know that at Big 10's, and we didn't really get to think about that, and now it's already gone, and that was the last chance wrestling like that. And obviously you never know when things like that are going to happen, but it would at least been nice to hey, this is my last time in front of a crowd like that, and give a little wave and to the people and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and then I came back for a 6th year chance to wrestle and do this one more time, and a lot of people did, and like I said, it's a bummer for the athletes that won't get to experience that. And fortunately, I'm not as upset, personally. I'm more hurt for other guys out there, just because.
Sure.
I've been there. I've wrestled. I've gotten the opportunity to wrestle in front of really, really awesome crowds and be a part of that. So I got to experience that, and I'm fortunate and blessed to have gone through that. But some people haven't and will never get to now, and that's who I feel for a lot through learning about this. And and then for all, I think the other people is the fan perspective is you got an older fan base that has gone to every NCAAs for the last 50 years, and now that streak snapping, and it's just overall it's sad, and it's a big hit on the sport, but I know we'll rebound and to figure it out moving forward after this year.
Yeah, and by the way, I've been at every NCAA's for like 5 or 6 years now. I think 2000 it was either 15 or 16. And listen, I'm going to go to the next 30, Lord willing, and I'm never going to say I didn't go to 2020 because if there's no fans, which I'm still holding out because I have a media credential, and I'm hoping essential staff includes media.
Yeah,
I would think that with no fans being able to go, hopefully they'll at least put an equal emphasis, if not more, on media. So I'm still holding out. But, the other thing, too, is from a crowd reaction, right? Like, we talk about the Alvarez match and how important that crowd is in feeding off it. And I was going back and forth with Spencer Lee a little bit. And, his final reaction was kind of, you know what? If my family's there, that's the most important thing I care about. Like, having my family in my corner. And, I didn't want to egg him on because that's the proper perspective. But selfishly, I'm like, yeah, but what about the Iowa crowd? Like, it's all but guaranteed Iowa's going to win the national championship this year. First time in a decade. Like, as much as, again, I'm a Penn State guy, those Iowa fans deserve it. Their team wins a national championship. They deserve that celebration. They enjoy every round. They enjoy those big matches. Like, from a not having fans at the matches, how do you think that could impact matches?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a huge aspect. I think some people break under pressure, and some people thrive under pressure, and some people get behind a crowd. Some people are the opposite. And so I think that's a huge mental aspect to the sport of wrestling. It's those crowd and the crowd and the fans and the atmosphere, and it'll be a lot different. It's almost like you're gonna be wrestling, up in a little practice room or something because there's nobody, there's nobody there. It's gonna be, and how big the place is. It's gonna be like a little ghost town out there. So you gotta, I mean, you're gonna have to prepare a lot different for this mentally, and it's gonna feel like it's no big deal, but this is the big show now, and you gotta figure out how to get up for it. I mean, I'm sure guys will. Everybody's still training for this opportunity and everything, but yeah, it's just taking a whole variable out of it, and you don't know how certain people are gonna react.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because you have some fun matches. Just before we hopped on this, the brackets came out, and it looks like Rivera's the 1, you're the 2, Chaz Tucker's the 3, Phillippe's the 4, RBY's the 5, DeSanto's the 6. So that sets you up for a potential match if the seeds hold and you went out and Chaz Tucker went out. That sets up for an amazing semifinal. Chaz Tucker, undefeated on the year. You guys have never wrestled. Like, that is a match that I feel like the fans would so get into, especially in a year like this where, you're a returning national champ. You're going out as a senior. You have Chaz Tucker, who nobody was expecting that much of Cornell. Here you have a guy who's a stud. He's undefeated. Like, the crowd would love that semi. What's your thought on and it's kind of redundant from the previous question, but what's your thought on matches like that, that the live crowd wouldn't be able to be a part of?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matchup that nobody's been able to see before, and a guy I haven't wrestled, like you said, and that's where it's always fun. That's where you get neither of us are from two huge schools, so the whole crowd gets behind matches like that and just cheers for a good match. And it would remind me maybe of a match like my semifinals against Tariq Wilson, where the crowd, that's one of the biggest effects the crowd's ever had on me, how loud they were screaming for that match and everything. And I feel like it could have been something like that, and now it's just us wrestling in the quiet. And yeah, it's weird. It's really weird to think about it and even imagine what it's gonna be like. So I know we'll have maybe we can whatever. I don't know what they're gonna let immediate family or if that 5-6 people a guy. So we'll have maybe 1,000, 2,000 people there. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and at least if you have the family, it's almost kind of remnant of a Bill Farrell type event where, and I still think, if they have family or not, I don't see a world where they keep it at the football stadium. I think the stadium's going to cancel everything, and they're going to end up having it in a high school or something, which would be even, I don't know what would be more crazy at this point. If they keep it in the football stadium with no crowd, or if they move it to like a high school gym or somewhere that it's a bit more efficient to run. Because without fans, that's just going to feel weird. It's almost better off just moving it to a smaller space where it's not, you don't need that big of a staff to run a football stadium to host an event like this. But it's going to be wild. And then, right after that, you have the Olympic trials, which it's like, you're qualified for the Olympic trials, but you also have the last chance qualifier, which UWW just moved their last chance qualifier that was in Bulgaria. They moved that from the end of April to early June. So already, if anybody doesn't qualify the weights this weekend at the Pan Am Olympic qualifier, now they're not going to know they're in the Olympics until June. And who knows if this last chance qualifier, which again, it's a kind of a hometown basketball court gym type match. It's a very it's going to be a very small tournament, and you go from the NCAA's to the last chance, which will happen there, then the Olympic trials. And I feel like the conversation, if they don't cancel the NCAA's in different regards, you have the Olympic trials, which I can't imagine. I can't fathom yet having NCAA's in an empty football stadium or, a little gym. But then to have the Olympic trials there. And another thing, too, actually, before we move on to the Olympic trials, one of the things you were telling me, and I know some people are talking about on Twitter, is that there's the potential that some schools might not just travel. Willie just said that it looks like Harvard might not send their squad, potentially. The Ivy League basically put out a thing saying spring sports are canceled and winter sports postseason is going to be up to the individual college and their presidents. And it could very well be where Cornell's president say, hey, we're not sending you, Cornell, to go there. So what's your thoughts on if there's not a full field? Like if certain schools start saying, hey, and I don't think I as much as I know Rob Cole, I never see a world where Rob Cole's not going to go. But if the presidents of Cornell say, Cole, you're not sending your guys, what's your thought on if it's not an entire field?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if you lose one of the top guys in a bracket, it's just going to, maybe feel a little bit like an asterisk year, or, if there's a low, if you don't have 33 guys in a bracket, it's a tough situation. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not super educated when it comes to the whole virus and everything. But yeah, it does sound like schools are looking into, hey, are we even going to send our guys? Even if the NCAA decides to have it still, are we going to allow our athletes to travel there? And I mean, I know our school's already put something in place where it's like, you have to get an exception to be able to travel for certain school events and things like that. And I don't know how that affects athletics and everything, but they're already putting a lot of things in place. And then everything, we don't have any in-class stuff anymore. Everything's going to be moved to online the rest of the semester.
So wild, dude. Penn State, everybody's doing that.
Yeah, it's wild. And I think a big part in what's going to end up for the NCAAs is how the first few days of the basketball stuff goes. If they're able to do that and not see maybe a lot of growth in the virus, maybe we're all good to go. But if they start having these games and traveling and they see an uptick in it, that's where I think they might take even more precautions. And so it's cross our fingers that this is the worst of it, and we're still able to at least get a chance to go wrestle for a national title. But it's crazy, and it's crazy how fast this is all of a sudden. At first it was like, oh, whatever, and then all of a sudden, oh, that got canceled. That's surprising. And then all of a sudden everything's getting shut down and changed, and it's crazy. And who knows what's going to happen.
Let me ask you this too, because I always think it's important to touch on faith, and it's funny. We're obviously talking about this because it's so important and relevant to both of us, but I just saw a buddy of mine from the church I go to posted a video today about Stephen Futrick, or whatever his last name.
Furtick, that's my favorite guy.
Yeah, so he posted a story today, or a buddy of mine posted a story from a sermon he posted about, it's not about you. There's a story going on that's bigger than you. And there's things that are bigger than people's opinions in you, and there's things going on that's about a story bigger than your own story. Not to minimize your story, but there's things going on so much bigger. What role does your faith play in a time like this, where I imagine it's very easy, and if you are a Christian and you have a perspective that, life is more about me, and one of the first things you said to me of, hey, if it saves one person's lives, it's not the end of the world to not have fans there. What role does your faith play in kind of grounding you to have that perspective of saying, look, it's going to suck if for my senior year, my 6th year senior, I go out there and I can't say bye to the fans. But very quickly, you kind of got to keep that proper perspective, because I'm sure there's guys right now that are pouting, and I get it, because if I was in your guys' shoes to be on that stage, I don't know what I would think. But what role does your faith play there in kind of grounding you to keep a proper perspective through something like this?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd say the big thing is, I know where my identity is. I know it's in Christ. I know it's in my faith and my beliefs, and that the national title is cool and all, but that's at the end of the day, that's not my identity behind it all. And so at the end of the day, if I go out there and it's not different, or, if it did get canceled for whatever reason, it's still, none of that changes. I still got my family supporting me through everything. I got, I'm grounded in my faith, and that's kind of my rock of everything. And wrestling is something, I say it's something I love to do. I enjoy to do. I'm going to do the very best I can in it, but it's not, that's not my priority in life to, it isn't just wrestling all the time. There's a lot of things that are more important, and having an impact on people and doing things right. And that's where it's like, if this is, there's bigger things happening here, and if people are at risk, and there's a chance, that more people can get infected and sick and possibly die, you gotta put people first. And that's a big thing I've kind of focused on, is people first. It's other people are more important. Put people before you and serve people, and I'm trying to do my best at focusing on that aspect of making sure everybody else is all good.
Sure. And last thing, and then I'll let you go. So the Olympic trials, we kind of started getting there. What are your thoughts on the Olympic trials? Like, here we don't know how it's going to play out. If Penn State today said it's at least 2-3 weeks after spring break, everybody's going to online classes. I think the more time that goes on, I'm not really worried about the Olympics being canceled. I think as the springtime comes around, as it gets warmer, that's generally when you see the flu die off a bit, and I think that's what a lot of experts are leaning towards for the coronavirus, which kind of replicates the flu in some regard. So I'm not really worried as time goes on, but here you have, I think, a lot of people right now making decisions that are very emotional. It's very harsh, and they're making quick decisions. Yep. And I almost fear that they'll cancel the Olympic trials 2 weeks out, 2.5, 3 weeks out. What are your thoughts on the Olympic trials? Here you're, 57 kilos is freaking wild. You have you, Lee, Gilman. I've heard Fix is going to be there. I've heard Fix is not going to be there. But it's such a wild weight. And here, you're right there. You beat 3 NCAA champs at Bill Farrell to qualify. You haven't lost a freestyle match. And, so you're easily a top favorite to make the weight. And here, if you make the Olympic team with no crowd there, even both, not just from like a praise standpoint, but kind of with those matches, like you've said, they've kind of been in your corner all season. What's your initial thoughts on the reaction for that?
It's a similar thing, but it's that would have been really cool. I never got the chance to wrestle at Penn State, so I was that's what I'm looking forward to, and as long as it happens, I'm really looking forward to that and getting in front of that atmosphere, because I've heard, that's another one that's just, you don't really know what you're getting into until you experience it. So, I was, looking forward to that. Hopefully it still does happen. And if it doesn't, you got to make the best of it. At the end of the day, my ultimate goal has always been to be an Olympic champion, and fans there or not, I'm going to try my best to achieve that goal and make that happen. So, just crossing your fingers that all that continues and stays in place. And, if it's in front of 10,000 people or 10 people, I'm going to be ready for that moment and try and make it happen.
I love it, man. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you go. I'm sure you got to eat dinner. I know you just got out of practice. I don't know. I might see you next week. I might not, but
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Either way, I'm sure we'll speak soon. And best of luck at the national tournament as long as it goes off.
Yep. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on again. It's always good talking to you.
Of course, man. We'll talk soon. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a different style of podcast where it's not just get to know a wrestler, but it's around relevant news and events. So let me know what you thought. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, YouTube, Anchor, Overcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And head over to the Baschamania Instagram and be sure to get in on the Traeger Grill giveaway.
And the beat goes on.